Judds, the lovely and talented Miss Naomi Judd. And, I've known, I guess, Naomi and Wynonna for I don't know, probably most of my career. Never was real close to them back in the day, but every time I was actually back in the day probably around Naomi more than I ever was Wynonna. And, I always carried that Judd name, and always after it always said Cledus T. Judd, no relation. And I carried that no relation around forever. It was on my CDs and all that because I didn't want to make them Judds mad at me, trying to infringe on their greatness. And I think it was at a CRS many years ago. I saw Naomi, and she came up and she said, "So how you doing, Cledus T. Judd, no relation?" And I said, "Ma'am, I'm doing great." And she said, "Well, I've been thinking you've done pretty good last few years, and I think it's about time you drop that relation, that no relation at the end of it, and I think it's time for you to be a Judd." And she hugged my neck. I've actually got a picture of it over somewhere in my storage unit somewhere. And we laughed, and I hugged her neck, and she heard mine. And I think from that point forward, there was no more Cledus T. Judd, no relation. I always said Cledus T. Judd, relation. And I used to aggravate her. I said, "Well, maybe I'll get in that wheel sometimes, maybe I'll get some of that Judd money one day." And we laughed and cut up. And later on in life, time goes by, and Wynonna became more a friend to me. I didn't see Naomi much, but Wynonna to this day is one of the most wonderful, kind people. Eclectic would be a great word for why. I've got she's a dear friend. Several years ago, I was living in Russell, so it had to be 6-7 years ago. I don't remember how long, but we were having a conversation one night, and she was saying, "Hey, I really never had a brother, and if something ever happens down the line," she said, I know you'd be there for me." And boy would I, boy am I, and proud to be. Why not be so long I can't even download it, but I think what I read something, that Wynonna said she passed away at 2:20 on Saturday, and I think within an hour there was a press release that was out, and I read the press release and kind of read between the lines as well as anybody would, and I thought the wording was right. I thought it was great, and it wouldn't have mattered. I don't know how they even put them sentences together. I know I couldn't when my mama died. But then you got them people coming out playing armchair suicide hotline people. "Oh, I can't believe they just didn't come out and say the S word. And they should have been more open and honest with the public." And no, they shouldn't. It ain't really none of our business what happened.
Naomi and her daughter Wynonna Judd, along with Ray Charles, Eddie and Pete Drake, were inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame one day after Naomi Judd died. In a statement made to the press, the family said that Naomi Judd died due to the disease of mental illness. In details, the statement said, "We are shattered. We are navigating profound grief and know that as we loved her, she was loved by her public. We are in unknown territory." Actually, reports coming in indicate that tears were shed at the ceremony as Naomi was scheduled to be in attendance. But while the show still went on, her fellow musicians mourned her absence. Daughters Wynonna and Ashley Judd were there to accept the induction. "I'm sorry that she couldn't hang on until today," Ashley said to the audience while sobbing. "Though my heart is broken, I'll continue to sing," Wynonna Judd said. Fans were gathered outside the museum, where a photo of Naomi Judd stood surrounded by a white bouquet at the entrance to honor her legacy. The Judds signed in 1983 and released 6 studio albums between then and 1991. They are one of the most successful acts in country music history, winning 5 Grammy Awards, Best country performance by a duo or group with vocal in 9 country music association. Rest in Paul Queen Naomi.